Moving to Houston can be one of the best decisions you ever make, but there are some mistakes that completely change your experience. And honestly, people don't even realize these mistakes until after they've moved. My name is Danny DePetta. I'm a local real estate agent here with the Living in Houston channel. And every week we get calls from viewers just like you who are looking to make a move to Houston, Texas. And in today's video, I'm going to be breaking down some of the biggest mistakes that I see. And I'm doing this so you can avoid stress, wasted money, and choosing the wrong area of town for your lifestyle. And trust me, Houston is very different from other cities. First mistake I see people make is treating Houston like it's one city. One of these biggest misunderstandings that people have when they move here is thinking that Houston is just one big city. In reality, Houston is more like a collection of completely different communities that all feel like their own mini cities. And so let me explain. Where you live in Houston will dramatically change your daily experience, your commute, your pace of life, even the type of neighbors that you have, and the vibe that you feel in your community. Now, here are some examples. Some areas feel more suburban and family oriented. Some feel coastal and laid back. Others feel wooded and nature focused. Some are fast growing with a lot of new construction, and some are more developed and have been there for some time. One of the big differences is the suburbs. You could live in Katy, Texas and be surrounded by incredible master plan communities, top tier amenities, tons of retail, in a very active suburban life. Then go a little bit further west into Fulshire, and suddenly you're getting more space, a slower pace, more newer communities, and people that are looking for that, love that small town feel, but still want close access to Houston. Now, head a little bit further down south to Leeds City, Galveston, some of those areas, and you'll be getting more of a coastal lifestyle. You'll have proximity to NASA, to Clear Lake, and to Galveston, which is gonna bring a completely different vibe to that area. Then, if you wanna head north to the woodlands, you'll feel like you're in a literal forest. There are trees everywhere, nature trails, and a very intentional master planned environment. So as you can see, they're the same metro area, but completely different lifestyle. Typically, when people are making the move to Houston, Texas, what they do is they go online and they do research. Now, I recommend you doing that as well, but the online research can be misleading. The homes are gonna look amazing in the photos, but what you don't see is the commute realities. What you don't see is the traffic flow. What you don't see if this is a lifestyle fit for you, and the proximity to your daily needs in the community. There are clients that I get that call me that love a home online. It's a beautiful house. Everything looks great, but once we got there to the property and looked at it and mapped out the commute to their work, to the school, and some of their lifestyle goals, they realized that area would make their daily routine a lot harder than it needed to be. So that's one of the biggest mistakes that I see people making, is thinking that Houston is just one big city, when in reality, it is a collection of mini cities around this metro area. The second mistake I see people make is underestimating commute times. Now, once you realize that Houston is a massive geographical area, the next surprise is going to be the commute time. Because here in Houston, miles do not equal minutes. I'll hear people say all the time, oh, it's only 20 or 25 miles away. That should be a quick drive. And in some cities that may be true, but in Houston, that same distance could be 25 minutes, or it could be an hour and a half, depending upon the time of the day and the traffic patterns. Now, I will say this, Houston is not gridlock traffic all the time, 24 hours of the day. It's more about heavy waves and peak times. Now, for example, morning rush hour towards major job centers, think Energy Corridor, downtown, medical center, all of these places, those are going to be gridlocked during that major rush hour in the morning. Now, in the afternoon, the pattern's reverse, right? Everybody's coming from those areas. They're coming from downtown. They're coming from the Energy Corridor. They're coming from the medical center, and they're headed to their homes. So that congestion is now going the other direction. So it's not necessarily how far you live, it's where you're going and when you're going. Now, what I see happening is people fall in love with a neighborhood online, but they don't visualize what the daily drive looks like and feels like 5 days a week. One of the best things that I tell clients to do is actually pull up Google Maps and check the travel time at 8 a.m. and then also at 5 p.m., not just in the middle of the day and not just at the time that you're checking, but check it during those peak hours. Also, one of the things I wanted to mention to you about Houston is Houston has a ton of roads, and honestly, they can be amazing and save time, but it's also something people don't always factor in to their daily budget or commute. Let me give you an example. A daily commute of about 80 miles from Fulshire to the Galleria area will cost you about $200 a month in tolls. Now, that's just a quick estimate, and that's if you're using the tolls all the way there and back. But just to give you an idea of how much it's going to cost for those tolls, that is something that people don't take into consideration, and definitely something you need to factor in if you're going to have a commute that has toll roads. Okay, the third mistake that I see people make is not understanding flood risk. And this is probably one of the most misunderstood topics about Houston for people that do not live here. And that's how flood zones work and how to actually understand the risk without overreacting. Now, Houston flooding isn't about avoiding the entire city. It's about understanding which specific locations are prone to flooding. Now, sometimes people hear the news story and assume that all of Houston floods, and that's just not accurate. Houston is a massive geographical area, and the flood risk varies dramatically depending on the exact neighborhood, elevation, and drainage. Now, what I like to explain is there's a difference between a floodplain and the flood history. Now, a home being in a floodplain means that FEMA considers it a higher statistical risk, but that doesn't automatically mean that it will flood or that it has flooded before. It just means that FEMA has placed a higher flood risk on that particular property based on all of the factors that they consider. Now, on the flip side of that, there are some homes that are outside the floodplains and have experienced flooding during major extreme events. So it makes a big difference to understand where you're moving. Now, with the floodplain, if you are in the floodplain, then you are required to carry flood insurance. And that definitely affects your monthly costs. So understanding where you are in relation to the floodplain actually helps you estimate your monthly costs, because that is going to be required by lenders. It is not optional. And your overall monthly cost will increase. Now, here's something that also is another factor, is the elevation. Now, some people don't realize that a lot of these newer communities are being built at higher elevations and are being engineered with drainage inside. These new master plan communities have modern drainage systems, retention ponds, elevation planning. But again, every neighborhood is different, so you want to look at each location individually. Now, here's what I tell all of my clients. Even if you don't live in a floodplain, get flood insurance. And here's the reason why, because usually the cost is very minimal. If you're not in a floodplain, you can typically get $500,000 worth of coverage for around $500 a year. And what you're basically doing is paying for peace of mind. In the event that there is some extreme flood event and your property does flood, you will have that peace of mind for an additional $500 a year. And in my opinion, that's worth it. If you are thinking about moving to Houston and want help comparing areas or building a location strategy, please feel free to reach out anytime. I work with a lot of families moving here, and I'm happy to help you think through the different options. All of my contact information is going to be located in the description below. Now, let's get to the mistake number 4 that I see people making, and that's trying to navigate builders alone. When you're looking at new construction homes, a lot of folks feel like they don't need to have a real estate agent. And this mistake is a big one, especially here in Houston, because we have so much new construction. What I see people doing is trying to navigate a builder alone. And let me say this, builders reps are great. They are outstanding people, and they do a great job describing all of the different features, the neighborhood, all of those things. They are absolutely knowledgeable and great at their job. But here's one thing that a lot of buyers don't realize. The builder rep works for the builder, not for you as the buyer. When you have your own realtor, that role is different. They represent you and your interests. That means we can help you compare multiple builders, multiple communities, multiple neighborhoods. We can help you understand pricing. We can help you negotiate things like seller's concessions that you can use to pay down your down payment or to get a lower interest rate. And we want to, and as a realtor, I make sure you get the full picture about different communities and neighborhoods, not just one particular house in one neighborhood. Now, builders here often offer great incentives, and those can be incredibly helpful, but understanding how they work is extremely important. You can use those for closing costs, design center credits, upgrades, or different packages. You'll also see builders advertising lower interest rates, and sometimes those can be a great opportunity, but in every scenario, it's important to understand that those rates are typically tied to the builder's preferred lender, and there may be trade-offs depending upon the sales on the situation. So what do? I help clients compare apples to apples comparison, because one builder might advertise a lower base price, but another might include more features that help you reduce your overall cost. So it's important to have that apples and apples comparison so you're making the best decision for you and your family. All right, the 5th mistake I see people making a lot is ignoring property tax structures. Now, this next mistake catches a lot of people off guard when moving to Texas, and that's understanding how property taxes work here. Texas has a very different tax structure compared to many other states. Now, one of the biggest benefits about moving to Texas is that there is no state income tax, which is great. It's an outstanding part of being a Texan and living here. But the trade-off is that there's more of a tax burden that comes through your property taxes. So your overall cost of living just shifts, right? It doesn't necessarily disappear. You no longer have state income tax, but you do have property taxes. This is where a lot of people get confused because property tax rates vary a lot. They aren't the same everywhere. Now, they can differ significantly depending upon a lot of factors like the city, the county, the school districts, and whether they have a MUD. Now, that term MUD is something that you hear a lot, and it's an acronym for Municipal Utility Districts, right? And that's what it stands for. Now, basically, when you have these new communities and these new neighborhoods that are being developed, the infrastructure, things like water, sewage, drainage, often gets financed through these MUD districts. So instead of the city funding everything up front, the costs get spread out over time through property taxes. Now, a lot of these master plan communities, especially the ones in growing suburbs, may have a higher tax rate initially because of those MUD bonds. Now, that doesn't make it a bad investment. It just means you need to understand the full monthly cost before you move into that area. Another big piece of that property tax in Texas comes from school districts, and that's why you'll see often that these tax rates vary between neighborhoods. School quality and tax structure often go hand in hand, so it's a bigger part of the lifestyle and budget picture when you're looking at those different things. If you're looking for great schools, the trade-off is going to be higher tax rates in those school districts. So here's what I tell people to focus on. Look at the total monthly payment, not just the whole price. Look at the tax rate, look at the MUD rate, look at the school tax rate. Factor all of those things into your monthly payment and then see if that's something that works for you and your family. Because here's the reality, a lower priced home in a higher taxed area could end up costing you the same monthly as a higher priced home in a lower tax area, right? And those are things that you need to look at and be able to compare apples to apples. Moving to Houston is an incredible opportunity, but the key is finding the right area to fit your lifestyle, not just the most popular area or the most popular neighborhood that you see online. If you are planning to move to Houston and I can help you in any way, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. All of my contact information is located below. I'd love to schedule a call or a Zoom meeting with you, and we can discuss all the options for you and your family as you're looking to make a move to Houston, Texas. And if you haven't done so, please subscribe to our channel and tap the bell so you get all the latest updates about living in the suburbs of Houston, Texas. And if you've enjoyed this video, please take a moment to like it and share it with your friends who may be thinking about moving to Houston, Texas, or one of the surrounding suburbs. And as always, we'd love to hear from you. Please don't hesitate to leave us any feedback or comments you have below. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you on the next video.